10 years ago, a number of people across the country began an ambitious program for the education of Hispanic students in theology. That's our topic today on Austin Faith Dialogue, the Hispanic Summer Program. Stay with us.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Joined us today for Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Sandy Wilder, your host, and today our topic is the Hispanic Summer Program, a creative, ambitious, nationwide program training students in theology, students of Hispanic background, and those who are interested in the whole Hispanic culture. Our three guests today are Dr. Ismael Garcia on the faculty of Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary here in town, and you're the Associate Director, right?
That's right.
Of the Hispanic Summer Program. And Professor Sally Gomez-Kelly from the Oblate School of Theology, all the way from San Antonio. Thank you. And also Chair of the Governing Board, and Dr. Justo Gonzalez, here from Atlanta, Georgia, and Director of the Hispanic Summer Program.
Sure.
It's good to have all three of you.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Justo. Why don't you tell us what the Hispanic Summer Program is? Set the stage for us.
Well, it's a program in which we get together roughly, not always exactly that number, but roughly 100 students, participants. Most of them are currently students preparing for ministry in their churches, for an academic program, but very much centering on Hispanic issues and issues of Hispanic ministry, and taught by Hispanic, Latina and Latino professors with Hispanic worship services and liturgies, basically so that they can have an experience of a seminary education that's more closely connected with our culture, the way our churches function, our communities, and so on.
Why the need for the Hispanic Summer Program? What was going on, say, 10 or 11 years ago when the enthusiasm for starting this program occurred?
Well, I suppose the first thing to say is that, oddly enough, well, we did a study back then about what was going on, and we found that the main reason why Hispanics quit seminary education usually is not money. That's what you would think, that they couldn't afford it. That's number two. Number one is more a sense of loneliness, irrelevancy, that the school might be a very good school, the education might be very good, but what does that have to do with me and my church and my community and where I come from? So the reason for this program was precisely to try to begin giving some of that environment or network or a sense that, yes, what you are doing really relates. So it's not an attempt to substitute this for what they do in the schools. What certainly in the schools is very good. But it's an attempt to bring that back into focus so that you have a new impetus to keep on working, to keep asking the questions that have to do with your own experience. So that was the reason for that.
Right. So then meeting a need that wasn't being met in the seminary. So Ismael, as Associate Director, you've worked with the program a number of years. Tell us exactly how it works. Who comes? Where is it held? What happens for these 2 weeks every summer?
Well, for 2 weeks, every summer, we meet in different places of the nation. We kind of divide the nation in 4 regions, and we try to rotate every year. This year will be in Princeton Theological Seminary. Next year will be at Oblate here in San Antonio. We gather students from all over the nation, including also Canada and Puerto Rico. So we are able to bring, as Justo was mentioning, 100 students from all Hispanic backgrounds, from most of the nations represented. They come from all the denominations, so it's a very ecumenical program. We bring students that just bring a hunger to deal with their issues on their terms. One of the things we find is that, that most theological schools have their own cultural agenda, and they have it in place. And Hispanic students sometimes struggle to find their place in it, and their questions and their concerns don't have priority, but they kind of float around and it's not clear how they're going to present those questions and what kind of answers they get. In our program, we just focus on those questions and those dynamics. And this tends to be tremendously affirming for students. They find who they are, they find their ministry does matter, they find that the issues of their churches and the congregations they serve are important issues, and they get answers around that by people who have been dealing and thinking about these issues for a long time. So this has a very transformative impact on their lives. It affirms their ministry, it motivates them to study, it motivates them to commit hirely, it motivates them to work as an ecumenical body, Protestants with Catholic, Pentecostals with classical churches.
So what I hear then is that the program, if nothing else, breaks down a lot of barriers.
Tremendous amount of barriers, yes. That's a very good way of putting it.
And I assume it also has a pretty serious academic component, that it is actual study, correct, during this 2-week period?
It is very intense study. We are able to gather one of the most sophisticated Hispanic faculty nationally as well. These are people that have not only national but also international reputation. Yes, the study is extremely serious. Our students sometimes complain that it might be a little bit too much at times. But it has a very strong academic bent. It has a very strong cultural affirmative bent, as well as a very strong worship component.
Sounds like 2 weeks is just too short.
It is.
But I'm sure the governing board works throughout the year, right, Sally?
It does.
So tell us who's on the governing board, what your role is, how you shape and guide the Hispanic Summer Program.
Well, the governing board is composed of all the sponsoring institutions that participate in the program. And currently we have 32 institutions and all accredited by ATS, School Association of Theological Schools. So that also has an implication for the academic standards that are held by the program.
What are some of those institutions?
Places like Princeton Seminary, like the GTU in California, like the University of San Diego, like Perkins and Dallas. So we've got a good sampling of a tremendous amount of schools with a large population of seminarians. And there's a commitment really to see that the mission of the program is kept in its integrity. That is to serve our Hispanic communities and provide leadership in those communities. Also to provide students that eventually will go and teach in these institutions also. So there is a Hispanic presence among faculties and other important positions in the theological endeavors. So we meet once a year in the place where the summer program is going to be held. We just met, a month ago at Princeton Seminary, which is where the Hispanic Summer Program will be held this next summer. And next year we will be hosting, Oblate School of Theology will be hosting the meeting for the governing board at Oblate School of Theology in San Antonio.
Oh, good. So the program will actually get here to Texas, which
that's
is welcome
correct.
news for us.
Neighbors.
Great.
Yes.
I'd be interested in knowing what it is about the program that all three of you saw as important, and so why you're investing your time and your energy when each of you has a full-time career elsewhere. What is it about the Hispanic program that's been so vital to you? Let me start with you, Justo.
Well, I think more than anything else, the impact on students. We have, I don't know how many students who tell us that this was the most important experience in their whole academic career. Large numbers of students that tell us that if it hadn't been for this program, they would not have continued in ministry, or they would not be doing what they're doing now. An enormous proportion of Latinas and Latinos who are now working on advanced degrees in order eventually to teach have come out of this program because they see the kind of faculty that Ismael was talking about, and they say, hey, perhaps I can do that too. And they have never seen people like them in their own faculties, or very few. So I think what really keeps me going is what the students tell us about what it has meant for them. And to me, it's fascinating because since this has now been going for 10 years, almost everywhere I show up, every town I show up, somebody comes and says, you know, I was in that program that you held in San Juan in 94, and this is what it meant to me. And they refer to it as a tremendous experience, and that's very affirming.
And yeah, Ismael, is that the same
As a
for you?
faculty member, what really brings me to the program is also the sense that we are doing theology in a different way. We are doing theology as a community, in community, and for the community. And we are doing a theology that is transformative. We are thinking of new ways of teaching and learning together and doing it in the context that leads to transformative action. And that's why it draws me in.
What about for you, Sally?
Well, I was a student in the Hispanic Summer Program. I was funded originally by the Fund for Theological Education, which was the funding that began the program. And I attended the summer program in Puerto Rico in 1994. So because of the benefits that I received there as a woman in theology, a Catholic in an ecumenical setting, dealing with the issues of our Hispanic people, and my interest in pastoral work, that's been my commitment to the program. And that's what keeps me there. It energizes me. This last summer, I was honored to be able to, and privileged to be able to coordinate the worship time for the 2 weeks program. And it was a very enriching experience for me and I think for the participants. So that's what keeps me here. There's a lot of energy that goes on those 2 weeks and very enlivening.
And I'm curious that you say a little bit more about how the program works with Hispanic women in theology. What does the program exactly do besides invite, I assume, women faculty members and women students?
Well, the fact that there are other women with whom you can share your experiences, that you feel that you don't have to explain who you are, and that the questions are similar, and that the concerns are similar, and that the way of doing theology has some similarities, and there's a methodology of looking at the experiences, a primary source of doing theology. All of those things become very affirming, and so I find that I have a place in theology, which at other times can be very lonely when you are the only Hispanic woman on a faculty or in a group of people doing theology. Amazing. So there's a lot of networking and there's a lot of support offered.
We've got time for one more question before the break. So something else occurs to me. We've been smiling and talking about how good the program is. Where are some of the points of friction?
Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. When you gather a mass of people like we do, with all the differences they come to one another, there is always a time within the program itself in which there's suspicions and doubt, and can I do this, and can I do that, and can I trust and not trust? And that always generates a kind of air of friction and how hard this is going to be. But it's just kind of beyond me. What happens in that mix of people that kind of moves away, and suddenly there is a transformative issue of, rather than I suspect about this, is how can I help to this? One of the things, as you were mentioning, people complain a lot is that it's too short. They want an extra week, or they want many more activities sponsored by the program and those kind of things. But in the number of years that I've been related to the program, we haven't confronted any major community break. What we found is what we thought was going to be hard to put together has just harmonized just because of the spirit created.
That's a good place to stop here for the first half, talking about God's Spirit actually at work in a program.
Well.
Thank you all. We'll be back for the second half of Austin Faith Dialogue. Stay with us. We're glad you're still here with us, Austin Faith Dialogue, where we're talking about the Hispanic Summer Program with our three guests, Ismael Garcia, who's Associate Director of the program and on the faculty of Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, Sally Gomez Kelly from Oblate School of Theology in San Antonio and Chair of the Governing Board, and Dr. Justo Gonzalez from Atlanta, Director of the program. Sally, before the break, we were talking a little bit about points of tension. And I have a hard time imagining that a governing board that encompasses so many different churches, denominations, gets along all the time. Perhaps there's some other points of tension you might talk about?
Well, worship is probably one of the initial points of tension when we begin the program and people from all denominations come together and wonder how is it that we're going to be able to pray together, knowing that our churches are not in full communion. And but chapel has always been an important part of what we do. And initially it becomes interesting trying to coordinate a worship service that is representative of the different denomination, yet it respects the ecumenical dimension of the program. Mm-hmm. And as one who coordinated it last year, I can tell you that at the beginning the dialogue is a bit cold and there's suspicions about how we're going to go about it. But when we begin finding the common elements of worship, of praise, of thanksgiving, of petition, of expressing our concerns in worship together, of praying for those that are still marginalized, for the transformation of society that needs to happen, all of those things are things that we can bring together in worship. And I can tell you that it's amazing how it all comes together. At the end of the 2 weeks, we can truly say that we have worshiped as one people, and that we leave with our differences. We have not watered down what we believe and what our commitment to our traditions are, but we have left with a broader perspective of how God is a God for all people. And so even though it begins as a point of tension, I think it ends up as a wonderful way to be enriched and be seen really as a way that we can come together. So
I hope other people hear this then as a model for some of the rest of us and not just people in Hispanic ministry.
Well, you know, one of the things that we thought important was that the whole worship experience is an education. Some of my students, for example, at Oblate don't get an opportunity to really lead in an ecumenical service or an ecumenical prayer time. So this offers an opportunity to how that can be done and be respectful, mm-hmm. and yet very enriching. So.
We were getting at, and Justo, I'll address this question to you, we were getting at, I think, the whole notion of how persons' spirits are touched, not just their minds, through the program.
Absolutely.
And maybe you'd want to say a little bit about another purpose of the Hispanic Summer Program, which is, I understand, the whole notion of formation of the person.
Well, we could say a whole lot about that. Too much of the way education is conceived in this country is bits and pieces that you call credits. And when you accumulate a certain number of credits, you've done it and you receive your piece of paper. A training, a preparation for something of the nature of Christian ministry, whichever form it's going to take, it's not just a matter of how many credits you have or how much you know. It also has a great deal to do with who you are, how you relate your faith to your life, to the life of the community, how you understand the rest of the people and your relationship with them. And that doesn't happen only, it happens also, but not only, not even primarily in a classroom. Mm-hmm. It happens in human relations, it happens in the kind of worship that Sally is talking about. It happens in the experiences sometimes very late at night, working on a course and people saying different things. And for me, one of the most important points at which this program is formative for people is the ecumenical dimension. Our people, in general, Latino people, are very much divided by religious prejudice. And there are very few churches that can claim to be innocent of fomenting those prejudices. So when people come to us, very often they are bewildered, saying, look who all is here. And just to be able at the end to come out, not only accepting these people as brothers and sisters, but as companions in a service of God and the service of the community, and as allies, and as it really is formative, not just in the sense that you have a different idea, but you're a different person.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about how people are changed, and probably you, Ismael, can speak to that most clearly. And then at some point, I know we've got a video clip that describes the program and gives sort of some testimonials about how people's lives have been changed. But maybe you can say a little bit about how you've seen these changes that all of you have alluded to happening in the students.
Sure. The changes take place in different ways in different people. The one that always amazes me the most is the one Justo was pointing to, which was the ecumenical opening of the person, the sense that we could have differences in the way we understand divinity, the way we want to pray to divinity, the way we want to celebrate divinity, and still we can do it together. And actually, I can help you do yours better, and you can help me do mine better, and we can do it in common. So that's one very important level of change. That is that we are training a new generation of pastors that don't perceive one another as divided across denominational lines, but are beginning to perceive each other as resources for a ministry for the well-being of a community that is poor and in struggle to overcome its condition. So that's one very important change. I think there's also a very personal internal change. That is, students that have tremendous amount of doubts of whether they can make it professionally or they can make it academically, so on and so forth, begin to gain a very strong sense of confidence that the challenges presented to them they can tackle, and part of the reasons they can do it is because they have the commitment of the faculty to help them do it, and they have the commitment of fellow students helping do it, that they're becoming good pastors or good leaders is not something they do on their own, but has a wider community of support and a kind of spiritual presence with them in that journey. And therefore you have a bunch of testimonials about people, well, I had doubts about the Baptists and now I'm working with them in this area. Or I have doubts about the Pentecostals and now we have prayer sessions together via internet or via the phone or via that I go and visit their churches. Or we have like the case of Sally, that she took a class, she found a community, she found a place, and now she's the chair of our board giving us orders. I mean, it's just kind of fascinating. Or people that started wondering whether or not I can pass this little class, and now are faculty members in some of the most prestigious institutions in the nation. So that kind of transformative presence, I've been very blessed to witness that, and I hope we can keep on doing that for a while longer.
And now you've got a decade to show what a difference this has made in the Latino community.
Right.
Well, let's see if we can get the video clip, which is a short look at the Hispanic Summer Program.
Great.
The Hispanic Summer Program began in 1989. One thing that we heard repeatedly from Hispanic students all over the country was they needed an experience where they could study with Hispanic peers from all over the country, Hispanic teachers, and when they could deal with issues that come out of their own communities and their own churches.
As a presenter, it's very exciting to see the students feel renewed in their preparation. It's very exciting also to see how they come together for worship, how they do their work, their homework together. This is bringing down a lot of barriers between denominations, between a lot of the churches. You have Baptists, you have Lutherans, Methodists, Roman Catholics. It's quite an exciting mix. And they're all very excited about wanting to work with Hispanics in this country. The program itself is a very exciting program. It's a very impressive list of people from around the country who are doing some of the most creative work in church today. And have them come here for the 2 weeks with these students. I can see already the renewal going on in the students and in their work.
For the first time in my theological training, that I was confronted with a community that supported me, a community that is different from who I am, theologically sometimes and academically. But for the first time, I can now understand the practice and the application of theological education in terms of a family and not as an academic training ground.
comments we make about the HSP should not be seen as a kind of Pollyanna paid advertisement. It's a very real human growth experience with all of the little pains and jolts that growth always brings.
I think this is true, and I think this is seen especially when people come with preconceived notions of what the other group is like. And they discover that, in fact, there are a lot of similarities, and even the differences are very enlightening, and they learn from each other.
What a great program. Thank you. Justo, let me ask you then, we've talked about the program and its probably national significance and maybe even international with students from Puerto Rico and Canada. But talk a little bit about the relevance of the Hispanic Summer Program for the people who are watching, for the folks from the Central Texas area.
Well, I think the first thing is that you have to be aware that people in this community, in this area, support the program. That, for instance, there are 2 schools here in Austin that are among the 32 schools that support the program. Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, from which Ismael comes, and also the Episcopal Theological Seminary of the Southwest. Very near here is Oblate School of Theology in San Antonio, which is represented by Sally. We have several other schools in the Texas area. So I think, first of all, to know that your schools, your institutions, are making an impact, an important impact, way beyond the limits of the city and the community here. I think that's one thing. Secondly, I would hope that if you are a Latina or a Latino committed to Hispanic ministry and to training and education for Hispanic ministry, or if you're a non-Latino who also is committed to Hispanic ministries, you contact us and we can somehow help for your training and your preparation and so on. And I suppose finally that obviously this program costs money, and if there is any of our viewers who feels called by God to contact us along those lines, would be most grateful.
We'll let the chair of the governing board have the last word. What kind of plea or appeal or invitation would you issue to the folks watching the program?
Well, first of all, thank you for featuring us on the show and allowing us to tell our people here about the Hispanic Summer Program. We would be greatly appreciated, again, students who are interested in the program, people who are interested in sponsoring a scholarship or funds that could be made available to our program to continue its mission. And thirdly, a prayer that this will continue in a service to our pueblo, to our people, who are in great need of leadership.
Thank you, Sally and Ismael and Justo, for talk about the program. And thank you for joining us this week on Austin Faith Dialogue.